Hey guys, what's up? Once again, HSS Tactical with Marine Operator. I'm just not gonna say that. I'm not an operator, of course, far from that. I'm an infantryman, been in the Marine Corps for a few years. So I just wanted to make a quick video about some things that people may have been confused about and may have wondered. So it is pretty much explaining COCOA. What is COCOA? For some of you guys, tacticians, whether you're part of a conventional unit or you are in special operations, this is something that you come across often. Whether you're presented or writing a warning order, this is something that you would come across, far more often than you can imagine. What is COCOA? Without further ado, COCOA is key terrain, observation, cover and concealment, obstacles and avenues of approach. In order to explain that, to give a basic, a more dynamic definition as to what it is, so you have to understand the compound word itself, which is key terrain. Well, key terrain, what makes a terrain key? Well, there are multiple things that make the terrain key. Okay, so number one, key terrain is, on the basis of my personal viewpoint, is the determining factors which constitute certain advantages within the baseline or the environment, right? So those determining factors are what? They're environmental conditions, linear features, which are the structural pattern of the environment. Okay, so think about it. In an area where it's muddy, there are a lot of flies going around. It's swampy, it's deep, in the wood line, and nobody wants to go there. It's isolated. Do you think anybody would want to go through that? No, nobody wants to go there. You see, because and when nobody wants to go there, that tells you that's exactly where I would put a patrol base, because nobody wants to go there. So all that makes a terrain key. And another factor that you may consider is cover and concealment, right? We're going to talk about all that. So environmental conditions also are, I talked about linear feature, right? Like mountaintops, ridge lines. I know that if I'm at an elevated position, I have a vantage point I can see all around, which gives me the ability to accurately and adequately shoot rounds at an enemy fire team or squad, literally destroy the objectives. Okay, so all these things make the terrain key. Micro terrain like ditches, places, natural cover and concealment like big trees. Okay, so all these things make the terrain key. These things could be beneficial to me and the enemy as well. So let's go back to an instance where the area is muddy, swampy, it's dark and deep. Well, nobody wants to go there, but think about it. If I were to go through that, I don't necessarily have to establish a patrol base there, but I may have to go through something like this. But if I'm going through something like this, I have to be careful, because something like this is going to delay movement eventually. Reason being is that you don't want to leave a trail, footprints. If the enemy is a good tracker, or let's say the guys that you're fighting, they're good combat hunters, they can come in, pick those indicators from within the baseline. Next thing you know, you're going to be tracked down. Eventually, these indicators in the baseline is going to lead to you. Okay, so you don't want to be you don't want to leave any branches or anything hunched over, like foot trails or any piece of trash, anything that is unnatural to the environment that was not supposed to be there. You don't want to leave any of that. So you got to be very careful when it comes to that. So that's why the terrain is key, because it affords you certain opportunities to be able to fight more efficiently. Same goes for the enemy. It could be the same thing for the enemy. So now the second letter in COCOA is observation. So when it comes to observation, what do you actually see? A lot of times when we're conducting patrols in an infantry platoon, sometimes you would send squads out to conduct what's called reconnaissance patrol, or to establish like LPOPs, listening posts and observation posts. So if I'm there, what am I paying attention to? I'm paying attention to the baseline, of course. I'm looking at target reference points. Let's say if I were to build a sketch and route that to my squad leader or platoon commander or whatever, depending on what your build it is. Now, things I would pay attention to like buildings. Do we have obstacles like rivers, like swamps or depression? Do we have like bridges? Do we have movement in the area? All these things you can, or obstacles or man-made obstacles like sea wires, stuff like this, or big trunk trees, stuff like this. So you need to be, those are observations that you make, or their movement, enemy movement, or they're like, do you hear a convoy sound? But of course, if you're actually putting things together, you would pay attention to like concrete patterns to be able to put that on paper. Okay, so those are, I'm just giving you like, you know, quick down and dirty as to what you may observe from within the baseline or whatever AO, area of operation, you find yourself in. So now cover and concealment. You know, high grass, like, you know, tall grassy areas that provides concealment, or big trees. I talked about microterrain earlier. All these things provide cover and concealment, allowing you to maintain a low profile to hide your silhouette, stuff like this, and of course prevent you from getting hit if, you know, in an engagement. So that's what observation is. That's what cover and concealment is. Excuse me. And then lastly, avenues of approach. Well, avenues of approach is pretty much where you know that the enemy is most likely to come through, and that's where you would want to emplace weapon systems like M240 Bravos, or you know, whatever submachine guns that you have, so you can have like enfilade fire down that avenues of approach. Okay, so you know, in a patrol base, of course, if you're gonna have good camouflage, right? It's smart to have good camouflage using the baseline and kind of, I mean, not so much to use the baseline, but to adopt with what the baseline offers you and go from there, right? So now with good camouflage, people can't really see. You're gonna have your you know, protective wire. You're gonna have your supplementary wire, or supplemental wire of, you know what I'm saying? And then you're gonna have you know, tactical wire to canalize the enemy within your PDF. In the unlikely event the enemy is canalized within your PDF, you have good enfilade fire down at avenues of approach. That enemy squad or fire team is going to be obliterated, no, for sure. So all these things need to be understood as to when you're writing a COCOA, having the understanding of why the terrain is key, and the abilities that you have, and the determining factors that give you advantages over the enemy. Okay, so that's what I wanted to do. I just want to just like make a quick video and explain as a whole what COCOA is. All right, guys, peace out. Stay violent.